They found their missing friend's name written on a map inside the cabin. The first sign that something was wrong wasn't when their friend disappeared. It was when they found his name written on a map. Deep inside a cabin none of them were supposed to know existed. By then, they had already been lost for hours, and whoever made that map had been watching them long before they ever realized it. There were 4 of them when the hike started: Evan, Chris, Matt, and Tyler. They had been friends since college, the kind of group that didn't see each other as much as they used to, but still tried to make time for one trip every year. Usually it was something easy: a lake weekend, a rented cabin, maybe a short trail with a good view. This time, Evan wanted something more serious. He found a trail system deep in the mountains, several hours from the nearest major town. It was supposed to be difficult, but not dangerous. The kind of route people online described like a hidden gem. Not crowded, not overdeveloped, just forest, ridges, old logging paths, and views that supposedly made the effort worth it. Chris was the most experienced hiker. He checked the route, weather, supplies, and backup options. The others trusted him. That trust would become part of the problem. They started early on a Friday morning. The first few hours were fine. The trail was narrow but clear, weather was cool, everyone was in a good mood. They joked about being out of shape, stopped for pictures, and took turns guessing how long it would be before Matt started complaining about his knees. Nothing felt off. Not at first. Around midday, they reached a split in the trail. One path had a marker. The other didn't. According to the map Chris had downloaded, the unmarked path was supposed to reconnect with the main trail about 2 miles ahead and cut off some elevation. Tyler didn't like it. He said it looked too grown over. Chris checked his GPS and said it was fine. Evan agreed. Matt shrugged and said he'd follow whoever sounded most confident, so they took it. Looking back, that decision was the one everyone replayed later. The unmarked path started normal enough, but within 20 minutes, it became harder to follow. Branches hung low. The ground was uneven. Several sections looked washed out from old rain. Chris kept checking his phone. The signal was gone, but the offline map still worked. At least it looked like it did. Around 3 p.m., Tyler stopped. "Hold up," he said. The others turned back. He was standing near a patch of mud, staring into the trees. "What?" Evan asked. Tyler didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I thought I heard someone." Everyone listened. Nothing. Just wind moving through branches. Matt called out half-jokingly, "Hello?" No answer. Tyler shook his head. Never mind. They kept going. Another hour passed, and the trail got worse. Then, it disappeared almost entirely. Chris admitted they may have missed the reconnect point. He said the best move was to push east toward a ridgeline, where they could get a better sense of position. Nobody loved that answer, but nobody had a better one. That was when Tyler started falling behind. At first, it was just a few steps, then 20 feet, then farther. He said his ankle was bothering him. Chris told everyone to stop and drink water. They took a break near a fallen tree, and Tyler sat down, rubbing the side of his boot. He looked pale. "Maybe we should turn back," he said. Evan didn't say anything. Matt looked at Chris. Chris looked at the sky. The light was already starting to soften. "We turn back now, we're still out here after dark," Chris said. "If we keep moving, we might find the main path." That settled it, even though it shouldn't have. They kept moving. About 30 minutes later, Tyler was gone. It happened in a way that didn't make sense. One moment he was behind Matt, the next he wasn't. Matt was the first to notice. He turned around and said, "Where's Tyler?" Everyone stopped. The woods suddenly felt too quiet. They called his name. No answer. Chris walked back the way they had come, shouting. Evan and Matt spread out a little, careful not to lose sight of each other. They found scuffed leaves, a partial footprint near a slope. Then nothing. No dropped bag, no broken branch, no voice calling back. Just forest. They searched until the light started fading. That was when panic began to creep in. Not full panic, not yet, but enough that their voices changed. Shorter, sharper. Chris kept saying Tyler couldn't have gone far. Matt kept yelling his name until his voice cracked. Evan stood there looking at the trees, feeling something he didn't want to say out loud. Like the woods had swallowed him. When the first drops of rain started falling, Chris finally made the call. They needed shelter. They could keep looking at first light. No one wanted to agree, but they were cold, wet, and losing visibility fast. So they moved. The rain came harder. Their flashlights cut through sheets of water and thin fog. The trail was gone now. They were moving by instinct, GPS, and whatever gaps in the trees looked passable. Then, Evan saw it. A light. At first he thought it was a reflection. Then it flickered again. Orange. Low. Firelight. They pushed toward it and found a cabin sitting in a small clearing. It looked old but not abandoned. Smoke rose from the chimney. That should have been comforting, but it wasn't. Chris called out. No response. Matt called Tyler's name again, like maybe somehow he had made it there first. Still nothing. The front door wasn't locked. It opened with a slow wooden groan. Inside, the cabin was warm. A fire burned low in the fireplace, fresh, not dying. A pot sat near the hearth. There were boots near the door, and a blanket over the back of a chair. Someone had been there recently, maybe still was. The three men stood just inside the doorway, dripping water onto the floor, unsure whether to feel relieved or terrified. Chris said, "You shouldn't be in here." Matt snapped back. "Tyler's missing and we're freezing. I don't care." They searched quickly. One main room, a small kitchen area, a bedroom, a storage closet. No one inside. No Tyler. Then Evan found the table. At first he only noticed the maps, several of them, spread out beneath a lantern. Some looked printed from hiking sites. Others were topographic maps, creased and stained. There were circles drawn on them in red marker. Not random circles. Trailheads, campsites, water sources. And one large circle around the exact area where they had gone off the marked trail. Evan leaned closer, his stomach tightened. There were notes in the margins. Dates, times, descriptions. 4 males, blue pack, gray hoodie, 1 limping. Matt stepped beside him. "What is that?" Chris came over. None of them spoke for a moment. Because there, written in small block letters near one circled section, were their names. Not all spelled perfectly, but close enough. Evan, Chris, Matt, Tyler. Under Tyler's name was one word: separated. The room seemed to shrink around them. Matt backed away from the table. "No," he said. "No, no, no." Chris grabbed one of the pages. His hands were shaking now. "They were watching us," Evan said. He didn't mean to say it out loud, but once he did, there was no taking it back. The fire cracked behind them. and all three turned. For a second, nobody moved. Then they heard something outside. A faint sound beneath the rain. A bell. Small, metallic. One soft ring. Then another. Matt whispered, "What the hell is that?" Chris moved to the window and pulled the curtain back just enough to look. The clearing outside was dark. Rain glistened in the firelight spilling from the windows. At first he saw nothing. Then something moved between the trees. A figure. Then another. Chris dropped the curtain. "We need to leave," he said. Matt stared at him like he had lost his mind. "Leave? Into that?" Evan was still looking at the table. There were other notes too, not just about them. Other groups, other dates. Some marked with question marks, some crossed out. A few had words written beside them. Taken, returned, meet. Evan didn't say that last word aloud. He couldn't. From outside came another bell. Closer. Then footsteps on wet leaves. Chris grabbed the fireplace poker. Matt took a small hatchet from beside the woodpile. Evan found an old kitchen knife on the counter. None of them looked confident holding any of it. Then something hit the back wall. Hard. All three jumped. Another hit came from the side. Then a voice. Low. Almost calm. "You shouldn't be in there." No one answered. Chris whispered, "Back door." They moved toward the rear of the cabin. The handle turned before Chris touched it. Someone was on the other side. He slammed his shoulder against it, holding it shut. Matt ran to help. The front door rattled. Then the window near the table shattered inward. A hand reached through, thin, dirty, grabbing at the latch. Evan swung the knife without thinking, and the hand disappeared. A scream cut through the rain. Not fear, anger. That was when the back door burst open. Chris and Matt fell backward. A man stepped inside wearing a rain jacket and a dirty cloth mask. He had something in his hand, a machete or long blade. He swung before anyone could react. Chris barely got the poker up in time, metal hitting metal. The sound was deafening in the small room. Matt tackled the man from the side, and they crashed into the table, maps scattering across the floor. Evan grabbed Chris and yelled, "Move!" The front door was still blocked, so they went through the broken window, one by one. Glass cut Evan's hands. Matt tore his jacket. Chris landed hard outside and nearly slipped in the mud. Behind them, someone shouted. Then the bells started again. Several now. Different directions. They ran into the trees. No trail, no plan, just away. Branches whipped their faces. Mud sucking at their boots. Rain made everything slick and unreal. At one point, Matt fell. Chris dragged him up. Evan kept looking back and seeing flickers of light behind them, lanterns moving through the woods, following. They ran until they couldn't breathe, and then kept going. Sometime before dawn, they stumbled onto a logging road, a real road, gravel, wide enough for vehicles. They followed it until they found a ranger station just after sunrise. Police searched for 2 days. They found the cabin, but it was empty. No maps, no bedding, no fire. No signs anyone had been living there, except old ash in the fireplace and blood on the broken window frame. They never found Tyler. Not his pack, not his phone, not even a piece of clothing. But later, one of the search volunteers pulled Chris aside and told him something that never made the official report. There had been rumors for years about people living deep in that section of the forest. Not regular campers, not survivalists. Families. Groups. People who stayed away from roads, avoided towns, and knew those woods better than anyone. And every few years, hikers vanished. Most were written off as accidents, falls, exposure, getting lost. But after seeing those maps, Evan didn't believe that anymore. Neither did Chris, neither did Matt. Because Tyler hadn't wandered off. He had been separated, marked, taken. And somewhere in that cabin, for one terrible moment, his friends had seen exactly how planned it all was. They went into those woods as 4. Only 3 came out. And every one of them knew the same thing. If they had stayed in that cabin even 5 minutes longer, none of them would have left.